have just received one apology from member de Villiers, will not be able to join us today.
Okay, we can do that once we have started our meeting.
Oh.
Okay, right. What? I don't know why the Metrolite is not working. Anyway, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is a meeting of the Standing Committee on Mobility. Today is the 23rd of August 2023. This meeting is conducted on the MS Teams platform, and it is also live on YouTube, and it's a way of enabling members of the public to observe our proceedings and possibly comment on it in the various particular way. So today, colleagues, before we commence with the agenda, my name is Derek America. I'm the chairperson of this community, of this committee, and I would like the members who are present on the platform please to introduce themselves so that we could satisfy ourselves that we do have a quorum. Members, can you please introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, Chair. Andrikus van der Westhuizen, a member of the committee.
Good afternoon. Any other members present?
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, Minister. Mbulelo Isaac Sulegu, member of the committee.
Any other members? I note that Johan did indicate that he received an apology from member Peter de Villiers. Johan, any other apologies that you'd like to share with the meeting?
Chairperson, no other apologies.
No other apologies. Allow me to just move back to the agenda, and the matters that will be dealt with at this particular meeting would be, firstly, we will have a briefing by the Mobility Department on the first quarterly performance report and also the expenditure report. And on the agenda that was circulated amongst members, the second item on the agenda was that we would adopt the negotiating mandate report on the economic regulations of transport bill, the National Road Traffic Amendment Bill, and the National Land Transport Amendment Bill. After, we will deal with a set of minutes, and then lastly, resolutions. I would like to just propose that we just move an item number 3, that is adoption of the minutes, to number 2 before we deal with the adoption of the negotiating mandate reports. Do I have the concurrence of the members present if we make that little adjustment?
Agreed.
Thank you, Honourable van der Westhuizen. And without much further ado, allow me to welcome the Minister. Minister Mackenzie, welcome to our meeting. I know that you have limited time because of other pressing national engagements, but you will speak to that. And then I hand over to you to make a few opening remarks before we formally start with the matters on the agenda. Thank you. Minister, over
Thank
to
you,
you.
Chairperson, and thank you for guiding me to this meeting. My name is Ricardo Mackenzie, Provincial Minister of Mobility. Can I just first introduce my team so you know who's here in the meeting representing the Mobility Department? I see the head of department has already switched on her camera so she can introduce herself. And then the rest of the team members also on here can introduce themselves, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Good afternoon. My name is Marissa Moore, and I am the HOD of the Department of Mobility. It's good to be here. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Honourable Chairperson and members. My name is Francois de Wet. I'm the CFO for the department and also responsible for management support. With me in the meeting is Mr. Kenneth Boyson. He's our Director for Strategic Support. And then I've got Pakama Mandita. She's a Deputy Director in the strategic space there by Kenneth. And then I've got Olivia Friday. She's an Assistant Director also by Kenneth. And we will be dealing with the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other colleagues on the platform that have not introduced themselves?
Good afternoon, Chair, Minister, HOD. Chair, it's Yasir Ahmed here, Chief Director for GMT.
Good afternoon, Chair, Honourable Minister. I'm Gavin Johnson, standing in for our Chief Director, Deirdre Ribena, within the Mobility Department. Thanks.
Any other members? Or,
Good afternoon, Chair. Farrell Payne, Acting Chief Director, Traffic Management, Mobility Department.
Anyway, if not, then we also have present on the platform is Mr. Jan Kutsia, our Procedural Officer. Then we also have Mr. Siraj Hassan, who is our technical expert that will provide technical assistance to members should they experience technical difficulties. And we also have Ms. Nomfundo Sepapula, who provides back administrative support to this committee. So now that we all have introduced, I hand back to the Minister.
Thank you,
to make
Chairperson.
Opening remarks.
Thank you, Chairperson. Yes, and unfortunately, I do have a Cabinet Management Committee meeting, which I need to present at, and including my head of department. But as you can see, our top officials are here who will take the presentations forward, and you're welcome to submit questions if you feel there's anything that you're unclear. But as you requested, we're presenting the our first quarterly performance this afternoon. The full presentation will be done by our team, and it will be different units giving input, whether it's transport, law enforcement, GMT. I see Mr. Ahmed is here, and then the in-year monitoring report, also noting, as by now that you're fully aware, that we've also have a management arrangement with the Department of Infrastructure, which is between votes A and vote 10. But my CFO and the department will take you through the performance. But it's important that we do take that into account as we move forward. And if there is any further questions, Chairperson are helping, I'm very happy to respond to that in writing as well. Obviously, there are budgetary risks, etc., and those things will be shared by the CFO. And as I indicated, our Chief Financial Officer is here. Our top officials are here to take you through the respective questions. And if there's anything that you require from me personally, you can definitely invite me again and submit it in writing. But this meeting, unfortunately, did clash with a management committee, which we need to discuss pressing matters given the current budgetary risk that we face in the country. So thank you for the opportunity, but I'll hand over to the team who will do the presentation. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Minister. I'm going to hand over to the HOD if there's any opening remarks you'd like to make. Now is an opportunity, Ms. Moore. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Chair. As the Minister indicated, the presentation will give an overview of the first quarter performance as well as the financial outcomes for the first quarter. So I'm relatively happy, although I wasn't here when all of this happened. I'm happy that the outcomes look good in terms of getting our expenditure to move, but also the performance looks very well. So I feel comfortable with the first quarter outcomes. The Minister has indicated that we're running on a management arrangements for the program 1, the administration program. So you'll see the numbers are not quite adding up there. We will be dealing with that by the end of September. So hopefully in the adjustment budget, it will align us to our own funding for program 1, and we will come back to you in the second quarter with something that makes a bit more sense. So if numbers look weird, they just understand it is because of that refresh arrangement. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Can I share my presentation, our presentation with you, please?
Chair, you are on mute.
Sorry, thank you, Ms. Moore. Mr. De Wet, will you just, just be in abeyance for a moment? I just want to know from the Minister and Ms. Moore, are you going to exit the meeting now or later?
Chair, I can stay until 1:30.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. Right, I've just admitted now Mr. Armstrong is from Salga. Welcome, Mr. Armstrong. Always good to have you in our meetings. So, Mr. De Wet, I'm handing over to you. So we can take it from there. That's the first item on the agenda is the first quarterly report of the department.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Maurice. Is my screen visible, like presentation by you?
It is, thank you.
And we will put it on presentation mode. Okay.
You can just take, Mr. De Wet, you can just take away the sidebar where the notes are, and then it will be much.
Oh, we struggle with that one, Chairperson.
Johan, you seem to be the expert. Let me just see now.
Right, presentation. Yeah, I think so.
You've got it. That's it. All good.
We're learning, Chairperson. Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you for the opportunity to come present this report for the first quarter to the Standing Committee. The HOD already indicated that she is very, very happy with what we've performed over the first 3 months, and our slides will be dealing with the indicators that we have for the first quarter, and we have a little legend there, and where we overachieve 115%, 50% on above, it will be in blue. If we achieve, that's 100% to 149%, partially achieved as 50 to 99, and then not achieved as the red one, where we are glad that we don't have any of those ones. We will focus on 14 quarterly indicators, and then there's 4 annual indicators which will be reported in quarter 4. Furthermore, in this presentation, GMT reports on 1 quarterly indicator, with the remaining 9 as our annual indicators to be reported in program in quarter 4. Just a dashboard view, right? We've got on the program 2, we achieved 3 out of the 4, and then program 3, we overachieved in 3. We achieved 5, and and we partially achieved 2. That gives us a total of 3 out of the 14 indicators that has been achieved or overachieved, and then GMT, their one was also achieved for the quarter. Then we take it per program, transport operations. There's the targets as per the APP. Our target for the number of routes subsidized was 1980. Sounds like the 1652 that we beat the Wales over the weekend. But and then 1961 with a 99% achievement there. And we said, right, okay, it's partially achieved, although it's 99. A number of kilometers subsidized, 7.8 million kilometers. We've subsidized 9.14, and it's 117% achievement. Then the number of indicated public transport network phases supported. Our target was 4, and we achieved the 4, it's 100%. And then if we go to subprogram 2.3, operator license permits, the indicator that we report on is number of provincial regulating entity hearings conducted. Our target was 30. The actual was 39. Achievement was 130%, and there's a green emoji. And there was increase in applications, new developments, and routes that was contributing to the overachievement. Program 3, transport regulation. Number of compliance inspections conducted. Our target was 99. Our actual was 95, and we achieved 96%. And we've got a little yellow for partially achieved there, but we will bring that up to par. That is inspections that are executed at driving license testing centers, and there is a little bit of capacity constraints due to the death of one of our officials that was in there. It's a small unit. Then on law enforcement, program 3.3, number of speed operations conducted, and our target was 1,000. We've done 1033, 103%, and it's green. Then the number of vehicles weight, that one was not achieved, only 80%. Our target was 171,500. We did 137,576. And as new to the Department of Mobility, I didn't think that load shedding would impact on our targets, but those what you call it, weighbridge, they are reliant on power to weigh those trucks and so on, vehicles that come through. Number of drunken driving operations conducted. Our target was 1,000. We did 1025. And also we've got a little green face there. Then a number of vehicles stopped and checked. We targeted 425,000. We did 437, and our achievement was then we achieved our target and therefore a green face. Just on these targets and the actuals against that, it's all backed by technology, and no manual calculations being done. So that is all done electronically. Then on law enforcement, number of pedestrian operations conducted. Target was 1,000. We did 1033. I think there's a percentage problem there at 208%. So that one was an overachievement. So that was actually 2033 that we achieved. So we will just fix that, and apologies for that incorrect figure there. Number of road safety awareness interventions conducted. Our target was 78. We did a 125, again a blue face. overachievement, 160%. Number of schools involved in road safety education programs. Our target was 79. We did 80, and then we achieved that target with a green face. Number of law enforcement operations conducted. Our target was 201. We did 244, 203%, and it's an overachievement. And then the number of traffic management evaluations conducted. The target was 1 for the quarter. We did that one, so it's 100%. That's just on the comments there at the bottom. Special operations within all corridors were introduced, which has contributed to an increase in operations executed. And the provincial corridor on SAP's 24-hour operations also contributing towards the overachievement at identified locations. Then GMT, they've got the one quarterly indicator, number of vehicle inspections carried out. The target was 850. They've done 888, and that's that achievement of 104%. That's green. Then, I don't know if you want us to stop by the performance, or can we go ahead with the financials and do it as one?
Mr. De Wet, I think you should proceed with the financials, and then we will, do it together as one. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Right, okay. Just a note, and the HOD already alluded to it, and that is that the budget for Program 1 is still needs to be split on an equitable basis, and for this around 50% of the ex-transport and public works administration budget was split 50-50 amongst the two departments as an interim arrangement, and that will now be fixed in the adjustment budget. We're already busy with working on that. Then the management arrangements, she also alluded to it. The effective component is strategic and operational management support, and then financial management, and then corporate services relations unit management. And that all contribute to a misalignment as in Program 1 administration, as the expenditure is mostly incurred in DOI, Department of Infrastructure, and while the people are also there, and the budget is lying with the Department of Mobility. So, an overview. The department has a main appropriation of 2.953 billion rand for this financial year. Included in this appropriation is 1.177519 billion rand as a public transport operations grant. That's a conditional grant which is received from the National Department of Transport, and that is seeking to subsidize the public transport service, which represents 40% of the main appropriation. The total expenditure for the 3-month period up to 30 June is 506 million rand, or 17% against the main appropriation. And we will allude to the deviation going in the next couple of slides. Program 1, we've already indicated that there's a misalignment there that will be fixed in the adjustments budget. Transport operations. Only 16% was spent there, 307 million rand. But if you look at the cash flows, it is about 22%, as 120 million rand for the third payment. The payment for June has only been done in July. What we will do going forward, we will have our expenditure against cash flows and not against the budget as such. And then transport regulations, there's 21% spending on that, 191 million rand against the 932 million rand budget. COE, 509 million rand is our total allocations. We've spent 21%. As indicated before, we want to leave that one out of the equation at this moment in time while we're sorting out the program 1 COE allocation as well. Goods and services. The high cost drivers there is licensing fees, consultants, fleet services, the data hub, George indicated public transport network, and that is 857 million rand for goods and services. Transfers and subsidies, big allocation there, 1.439 million, mostly the allocation for PTOC and other municipal allocations that we do, for instance, City of Cape Town and George. Payments for capital assets, that's transport equipment and other capital equipment for staff has 147 million rand. That is directly linked to the day tariffs that we pay to GMT on the fleet that we rent from them. And those cars are mostly used by our traffic officers that's patrolling our roads. The George integrated public transport network, we haven't spent a cent there, right? Okay, the cash flow is for the once-off payment in September of 106 million rand to the George municipality. So that will then go to up to 100%. So there's no risk of not spending that. The transport hub, we've spent 6 million rand out of the 107 million rand. And the reason for that is that our spending is linked to certain milestones that needs to be reached, and based on the project plan and the cycle and the deliverables, and there's also not a risk that will be underspent. That money is fully committed for the year. Then the public transport operation grant, just 1.177 billion rand. And the purpose is to provide supplementary funding towards public transport services provided by the Western Cape Mobility Department. We spent 236 million for the first 2 transfers that we made in May and June. And then it continues till the end of the 23-24 financial year, and it's subject to review. The risk is that there is more for Golden Arrow because their contract makes provision that they will only claim up to the amount of the grant that we receive from the National Department. But we will meet with them as well just to see what can be done. Own revenue. The own revenue allocation for the department is 32 million rand. That excludes the motor vehicle licenses. The revenue that we collected is about 30% or 9.865 billion. So the rest that we are not going to achieve that target of 32 million is minimal. There are 3 main revenue drivers: abnormal roads licenses and special licenses numbers, which contributed to 98% of the total revenue collected as at the end of June 2023. Then the big one is the motor vehicle tax receipts. That's, I would say, the budget that was allocated from that 2.02 billion rand for mobility department was 772 million rand. Of that, that is 38% of the total tax receipt allocation of 2.029 billion. And the balance were allocated to Gauteng Department of Infrastructure. We will be dealing with it in line with Provincial Treasury and the Department of Infrastructure to look at that split, because if you take away the agency fees that we pay on the collection of that motor vehicle license, and you take that into account, only about 20% of that money is coming to the department or to the mobility department. And that is also a risk for us. Then budgetary risks, license agency fees, I've already mentioned that. Last year, the allocation is we spent 399 million rand, and that was against the allocation a budget of 1.958 billion rand. Our budget now is 2.029 million. It's a fixed percentage, and the 353 million rand that's currently in the budget is not sufficient to cover that agency fees. But as indicated, that is an internal discussion with Treasury and Department of Infrastructure going forward. Golden Arrow Bus Services, the PTOC subsidy shortfall. We indicated there that 311 million rand or 7.5 million kilometers is the anticipated shortfall for this year. It is a risk, and it carries through to the other outer years as well. We've already rationalized some of those routes, make it less, but it seems that more kilometers are being driven on those revised, rationalized routes, and there is some discussions going forward with Golden Arrow Bus Services to see what we can do to mitigate this risk. Then on the training colleges, the funding has not been allocated for year one, and there's the initial 135 students for 23-24, and the training funding for the training is been done for 120 students from January onwards, and we need to look at that specific intervention there. But with the budget constraints that we going forward, we just received budget statement, budget circular 1. We need to bring that in as a huge risk going forward. Then there's also some provisions that slip through the cracks for tasers, alcohol breathalyzer devices, and uniforms. That was not part of the 23-24 budget. No rollover application was submitted to cover the cost, but we've already identified certain potential savings where we can reprioritize some of that funding towards this commitment that we've got. Thank you, Chairperson and committee. And if there's any questions, we are all here to answer those questions. And as Minister indicated, if there's specific questions that we cannot answer due to them leaving the meeting due to other arrangements, then it's welcome to put it through in writing, and we will respond according to. But we will do our best to respond to all the questions that the members pose to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. De Wet, for the presentation. So I'm going to open the floor for questions from members. Mr. De Wet, you can unshare your screen if you thank you so much. Okay, I have an indication from member van der Westhuizen, and then Honorable Seleku. In that order, Honorable van der Westhuizen, you may pose your questions, and then Honorable Seleku, you then follow Honorable van der Westhuizen. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Mr. De Wet for the presentation. Chair, I have 3 questions at this stage, but before I get to my questions, perhaps I may just say I've got great admiration for them managing the transition and the changes within the department, which I, from experience, know affects the organizational culture, and it causes a lot of issues that are able to draw people's focus from their primary, what their primary focus should be. So thank you very much for that. Chair, I believe I'm on record that I have serious doubts and questions about the quantitative figures that are used for these reports. And I want to ask a few of these. Perhaps if Mr. De Wet could perhaps go back to this presentation, if you would allow him to. Perhaps, for example, the page just before section 3, there are some items which it seems to me as if they are outside of the control of the officials, yet they are measured against that. For example, I think the target was for 30, can I call it disputes regarding the issuing of licenses, and the achievement was 39. So my question is just, and I think this is the more important one, can we get an indication of how long does it take for such a dispute to be dealt with? Can we get an indication of the number of disputes that, for example, are currently, can I call it outstanding and still in need of being handled with or dealt with? My second question is regarding the number of vehicles that are being stopped for, I think the word was used, inspections. Now, Chair, as a member of this council, we travel a lot, and there are some places where I can already foresee that they will stop me, for example, at the weighbridge outside Moorreesburg. Yet all that they are checking is my driver's license and my vehicle license. They're not checking my vehicle at all for any signs of perhaps lights working or not working. And my question is, would they be able to test a vehicle's lights during the broad daylight, or is that something which can only be tested I know that there are numerous vehicles, we all notice that drive around with not all their lights working, yet it doesn't seem to me as if that is a priority for the department when they stop and inspect vehicles. And then, Chair, my last question, I believe, is regarding the testing stations. Are they, do you arrive incognito? Do you just observe how they test? Do you just see whether their equipment is working? Perhaps if you can expand a little bit as to what those inspections comprehend. Sorry, Chair. And then the last one is the breath analyzer equipment. I see you are again acquiring that. A number of years ago, this was a huge issue when the courts were doubting the accuracy. Has that been cleared with the National Prosecuting Authority? And are those tests now accepted as sufficient evidence by our courts? And I'm asking this particularly as we are, entering into the summer season. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable van der Westhuizen. Honourable Seleko.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mine won't be long as my height today. Mine is just 2 questions of clarity in terms of sub-program 3.3. The issue of load shedding. Chair, we have been confronted with load shedding now for many years, and one would not want to accept or agree whenever there's a target not being met due to the fact that load shedding has played a part. So when such happens and is been used as one of the indicators as to why a department has not met its or partially have met its target due to load shedding, and it tells you that the department has not been planning, appropriately for such. So I would just want the department to elaborate more in terms of what is it that they're going to put in place to mitigate this, this challenge that they are currently confronted with, as we all know that load shedding is not something that is going to die tomorrow. That's the first one. Also, Chair, in terms of sub-program 3.2, target not be met due to capacity constraints. Can the presenter just try to be more specific and elaborate in terms of, what is that, what do you mean by capacity constraint? Because, we don't want to generalize and assume Can you just elaborate more? I think those are the two questions of clarity that I have, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Sileko and Honourable van der Westhuizen. Just want to latch on to one or two questions that were posed. And the one being, so the matter was raised in our previous meeting also by Honourable van der Westhuizen regarding the number of vehicles stopped. And the matter raised today is very similar, and we haven't dealt with it at the time. So I would like to just extend that in a sense that should we expand the inspections that have been done by these officers, to what extent will it impact upon the targets that has been set? Because as it is now, we have overachieved these targets, and if we should expand the number of inspections that need to take place, then certainly it will take longer, and whether there will be technological adjustments that needed to be made to log those kind of inspections, because all of these targets are technology driven, and any additional inspection would be needed to be accommodated as such. And then secondly, I mean, there's a overachievement with regard to the number of kilometers subsidized. Now, if with that one in particular, if we have kilometers subsidized that went over and beyond what is being budgeted for, and this is the first term, first quarter, so to speak, what impact will it have on the annual budget allocation for that particular subsidy? And then I'd like to have more clarity with regard to the number of pedestrian operations that have been conducted, and there's an overachievement of over 200%, 200% over 100%. So I'd like to know more clarity. What kind of operations are we referring to here? And then with regard to GMT, the number of inspections that were done is just a global amount. I'd have liked to have that sort of amount separated between the number of inspections that have been conducted in George and also the number of inspection that has been conducted in Cape Town, and those numbers as a percentage of the number of vehicles that's been inspected that is envisaged to be inspected for the entire year. And perhaps, something that I neglected to mention is that if one, and just in closing, I would say the number of vehicles stopped and inspected, whatever, I'd have liked it to be sort of presented in a way, and perhaps it could be done by virtue of a further information that will come from the department. In terms of the districts, the 5 districts, how many vehicles are being sort of stopped and checked in the various districts, as well as the metropolitan area, and that perhaps as part of further information that could be provided. And then lastly, in terms of the number of traffic law enforcement recruitees, it's new traffic officers that There's an amount of 135 that has been sort of penciled in to commence their training. And then it was also stated that as from the year 2023-24, that amount is being reduced to 120. Now, none of it has commenced yet. So can you get clarity with regard to what is the real status around that? Because we know that due to many reasons, the natural attrition and people changing jobs, whatever, retiring, that we do need, if we want to expand our service and our law enforcement sort of mandate that we need to fulfill, then we need to have new recruits. And we cannot sacrifice a reduction in the number of traffic law enforcement officers as a result of budgetary constraints. And then how are we going to deal with it? Because we already now have a backlog of 135 that is not in training as yet. So please just provide us a little clarity on that, Mr. DeWet. And that's all from my side at this point in time. Thank you. Over to you, Mr. DeWet.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm lucky I only have one question to answer, and that's the one on the kilometer subsidies and the budgetary risk that we have. Right. Fortunately, our contract with Golden Arrow Bus Services states that we can only, they will only claim the total up to the total amount that was given to us in terms of that conditional grant. But we are in discussions with them because we still want to deliver the service and see how we can do it more effectively within the current budget allocation and going forward. Mr. Yazir Ahmed and Mr. Farrell Payne, they will be dealing with all the other questions that was asked by member van der Merwe, member Seleko, and yourself, Chairperson. And I hand over to Yazir Ahmed. Thank you.
Thank you, Francois. Chair, through you. I'll answer the one question with regards to GMT. Chair, thank you for that question. It's with regards to the number of vehicle inspections that were carried out in George versus vehicle inspections that were carried out by, let's call it, the head office in Maitland. Chair, we can extract that information from our system. We do have what's called our Fleetman system, in which all of the vehicle inspections are captured. We are in the process, of course, of reviewing that system and replacing it with what we call Fleetman 2.0. But if you do want us to extract that information to give that percentage of inspections done in George versus inspections globally, we can do that, but it's not immediately or readily available, but it can be extracted for you. Thank you, Chair. The other questions, Chair, I think largely related to provincial traffic. Before I hand over to Mr. Payne, but perhaps just to assist him, because I was involved with a case, and that is with regards to the question that was asked by Member van der Westhuizen, and thank you to him for the question. It's with regards to the breath alcohol testing. Mr. Payne can also elaborate, of course. There was an issue, as Member van der Westhuizen indicated, quite a few years back now, something like 10 years ago. There was an issue with regards to the admissibility of what's called evidentiary breath alcohol testing results. What we then did as a department in the Western Cape, with the National Prosecuting Authority, if I'm not mistaken, it was Advocate Billy Downer, who represented the state. We then took a test case to the High Court, where an individual who was nabbed for drunk driving was arrested. We took that case to the High Court to set a precedent. And that precedent, through you, Chair, to Member van der Westhuizen, has subsequently allowed us to use the results from, for example, the Draeger machines that do the on which we do the breath alcohol testing. For that report that is generated by the breath alcohol testing machine, for that to be submitted as evidence in a case of driving under the influence or drunk driving. Thank you, Chair. I'll hand over to Mr. Payne now.
Mr. Chairperson, Mr. Ahmed, thank you very much for that input. I also just like to stay on that point, then I can just deal with the current figures that's projected in terms of the procurement of the breath testing equipment. We have, as a department, of course, moved in leaps and bounds, especially from a law enforcement or traffic management point of view, by using our technology. What we have done is there's currently new breath testing equipment on the market that our officers can use roadside along the road, right? Now, we need to distinguish between the roadside tests, which is basically gives an officer an indication if he suspects that he's dealing with a person that is drinking and driving, to conduct a road test. Previously, or the equipment that we currently have was not linked to the integrated hub. And a question was once posed, which was a very valid question, in terms of how many tests do we conduct, right? And how relevant is that in terms of the percentage of people that is actually over the legal limit? The new equipment will enable a direct link as soon as a test is conducted, firstly to register the case, the details of the person, but then also more importantly, the reading that the officer conduct alongside the road. We need to determine, and the reason why we actually need to procure this additional equipment is to give us an idea in terms of percentile-wise, is there an increase in the amount of people that we're testing, or is there a decrease due to the operations that we are conducting? So there's some vital and critical data that we'll be able to extrapolate from the procurement of the new roadside breath testing equipment. Right, and then from there, of course, as Mr. Ahmed indicated, we have our 2 permanent alcohol evidentiary centers, one, of course, in Vanguard, the other one in George, and then we have our 3 mobile units. And the equipment that Mr. Ahmed was referring to is then, if a person is over the legal limit on the roadside, then we conduct the full test, and that evidence is used and is admissible in a court of law. The reason why we're also upgrading the equipment is that we don't unnecessarily put motorists through the trauma of, the suspicion or faulty equipment for them to go through this process. So it's all about, efficiency and improving on our service delivery model when it comes to our driving under the influence operations, driving under the influence of alcohol or intoxicating substances to improve that efficiency rate. If I can go back, Chair, with your permission, to Honourable van der Westhuizen's question in terms of his own experience when he was stopped by our traffic officer. Again, one of the things that we are preaching to all our staff, and it's embedded in the training that we actually provide from the day they are recruited, is about the quality of service that we do render. And it's unfortunate that we will have some 1 or 2 incidents where, and part of that training is our general road safety management program. And one of the pillars that we focus on in terms of our law enforcement activities is, of course, the inspection of vehicles. Now, when we speak of inspection of vehicles, your observation, in terms of what you reported, Mr. van der Westhuizen, it's actually disappointing to hear that the officer just checks the driver's license and the license disc on the vehicle. When we speak of an inspection of vehicles, it's the complete inspection. Doesn't matter what time of the day it is, right? So it's something that I will bring to the attention of traffic management in terms of the roles and the functions of the supervisors that is on duty, not necessarily always with the officer, because we'll have 10 officers on duty, all in various locations in a particular traffic center or region, and that senior needs to actually visit all these officers to ensure that the service that we render is of a qualitative nature and not quantitative nature. So it's something that we will address. and thanks for bringing that to our attention. In terms of Honourable Member Seleko's question in terms of the load shedding, we have been proactive in terms of load shedding. And all of our way bridges actually have generators. We do, however, experience challenges at times where the generators does not necessarily kick in. Then we've got to wait on service providers to come. So they do run regular checks, but unfortunately, we're still sitting with a piece of mechanical piece of equipment, and we still experience, we still experience some challenges which is way beyond our control. We have made provisions, it's the same as the manager responsible for the weighbridge facility. We cannot report that we ever ran out of diesel. So the proactiveness from the department side is, we did exceptionally well in terms of the fitting of generators to deal with the capacity that's needed at the weighbridges, but there's also unfortunately circumstances where it is beyond our control. Or sometimes when the generators kick in, right, we have a problem rebooting the computer system because everything is done electronically as well. But, whatever challenges we do have, it's reported through the manager of the site. And then, of course, we have our service providers deployed to deal or to mitigate some of the concerns that is raised. Chairperson, in terms of, and I think I dealt with it in the response to Mr. van der Westhuizen's question, is everything that we do is basically supposed to be and meet the quality standards in terms of training that is provided, and that is facilitated and ensured by our seniors in terms of the vehicles that is stopped. And as I alluded to it, I will definitely be addressing it with the management team in terms of the concerns that has been raised here in the meeting. In terms of our pedestrian operations, as you're aware that at the moment, pedestrians is high on our priority list in terms of reducing our fatalities by 50%. So there's a lot of interventions other than our communication strategy where that's extremely effective. We're also finding more and more that the age groups is falling into the high school categories of our pedestrians, not ignoring the fact that, the 20 to the 30-year-olds is a concern. The reason for the spike, and it's also to mitigate, and let me reverse that. As part of our statistics, we found that there's been a lot of spikes in certain areas, which meant to revisiting our tactical and operational deployment to address this, the pedestrians. And we've actually, a lot of the additional facilitation took place at schools, not necessarily at primary schools. The Scholar Patrol interventions that we've got is doing fairly well to ensure that the children comply and cross the road safely. But the biggest concern actually occurred at high schools. If you take the Dorens, it still remains a contentious issue. So much so that we've quadrupled our amount of interventions each and every time in the area like the Dorens, and that's based on our stats. We also have our pedestrian awareness programs at Shabines, especially on a Friday evening, right? We've also increased that because there's also been a spike in the establishment of some of these facilities. So, the total that we set as a benchmark, it's basically, and I would like to always call it a minimum amount that we can possibly do within our reach, but if we can extend it, it's the same as the integration between our road safety officers and our traffic law enforcement officers at operations, where they can still even hand out the necessary, pamphlets and things about pedestrian safety awareness programs, the use of cell phones, and I can just go on and on with the list. We are, however, we do have an intention to get our non-motorized transport strategy finalized. And this includes our vulnerable pedestrians. It's an alarming rate of amount of pedestrians that is currently involved in our fatalities. Not all of them are drunk pedestrians, but there's also a lot of distracted pedestrians that we are trying to deal with at this stage. So we're trying to use various platforms to address that. We're showing some good progress from a law enforcement point of view to reduce our driver and passenger fatalities with our law enforcement programs and our DUI operations. And the intention from the strategic point of view is to see how we can mitigate our pedestrian fatalities. We are also in the process, Chair, to see how we can increase our road safety officers' capacity within our Chief Directorate to support this non-motorized transport strategy. As you know, there's been an explosion of the erection of schools, and it's something that we need to see how do we accommodate in terms of our stats. The metro area is, however, the highest contributors of our pedestrian fatalities, and in conjunction with the city as part of the strategy, we intend bringing them on board to see how they can assist in all ways. We also intend going to the liquor board to find out if they've got their database in terms of exactly where, shebeens, bottle stores are, and then cross-referencing it with our tech that's available, or conducting an overlay to see how many pedestrians is actually involved in crashes or fatalities at that locations. Same with the school programs. Once we have the GPS locations, we will be moving in that direction to see how we can address that. In terms of the stats for the 5 districts and the breakdown, the stats is available if you do need it per region. Just for the purpose of the standing committee, it will just lengthen our deliberations. But if you want to have a look at it, we can by all means supply it if you need to see the breakdown in the 5 districts, but it is available. In terms of our recruits, Chair, unfortunately, we were ready to do the intake of the 135 officers or the 135 officers at the beginning of this year. We were then stopped in our tracks by the RTMC, where they indicated that the 1-year traffic qualification has been taken out of the equation with the replacement of a 3-year qualification, which as a department, we actually objected to. For obvious reasons, we unfortunately do lose, provincial traffic lose 30 officers per year. And if we must wait for 3 years for an officer to graduate through the 3-year qualification, it will have a direct impact on our service delivery model, which is of importance. Fortunately, they made a U-turn at the MINMEC after all the provinces opposed the possible immediate implementation of the 3-year qualification, and hence us then trying to, and therefore we couldn't have an intake for this year. However, what we have done was we managed to arrange for an intake starting in January 2024 that will finish in December 2025. Hopefully we will get the response that the 135, we're looking at 167 officers to offset the previous year's loss of 30 officers. And I'm sure that will work out fine. We already advertised that we're going to start the recruitment across the province. The advertisement is closing the end of this month, which then leaves us a limited time, because in traffic management, of course, we can't count December. That's where our law enforcement operations kick in. So we need to finish recruitment basically as from the 1st of September. And we are hoping to finish it by mid-November, informing candidates timeously about they're successful or not. And we're operationally ready at the training college to start facilitating this program to our officers. I think I covered everything, Chair, unless there's something that I have left out.
Comprehensively, Mr. Payne. Thank you so much. Colleagues, any follow-ups, any additional questions you'd like to ask? I recognize Honourable van der Westhuizen. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, regarding my question of targets being set for parameters that are actually outside the control of the department, and I'm referring to those 30 versus 39, by lack of a better recollection, I'll call it disputes that have been dealt with. I'm sorry if I missed response there, but my questions were good. Thank you. We take note of the fact that you clearly overachieved in terms of your targets, but can you give us an indication of the time delay or the time taken for such a dispute to be finalized? Can you perhaps give us an indication of the number of disputes that are currently, can I call it, on a backlog? Because that is for me, the important thing for us to be able to measure performance in terms of that criterion. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable van der Westhuizen. And before Mr. Payne responds, I'd like just to commend the department for the varied approach to have with regard to the pedestrian operations, and now I can understand where the overachievement emanates from, and it is quite remarkable. Thank you so much, Mr. Payne, for that response. And I just want to, just for clarification purposes, in terms of the way bridges, we know the infrastructure belongs to the Department of Infrastructure, but the operation sometimes becomes the responsibility of the department. In terms of the operational costs associated with the generators, who bears that cost? Does the department bear that cost, or is the Department of Infrastructure responsible for those costs? Thank you. Mr. Payne, over to you.
Chair, if I may answer your question, in terms of, you're 100% correct in terms of your interpretation. The infrastructure belongs to the Department of Infrastructure, which includes the maintenance, servicing, and the diesel cost, right? Our contractual obligation in terms of the joint venture, I've got to call it the joint venture now because of the split in the departments, right, is the allocation of human resources on a 24-hour basis at our weighbridge, right? Due to, if summonses needs to be issued. And that's why I mentioned also in my response that the manager responsible for the site is no matter what time of the day is on standby. If we have any faults in terms of the generators kicking in, it's his responsibility then to make the necessary contact with service providers and ensure that they get their timely and adhere to the contracts and everything to go along with that. I don't know if that answers your question, Chair. And then just in terms of Mr. van der Westhuizen's question, I just need clarity in terms of, he's referring to disputes. I just need to get some context of exactly what he's referring to and how long it takes. I'm not, if you can just repeat that, please, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Can I proceed? On the presentation, there was a KPI, performance indicator, which said that I think it's the disputes regarding operator licenses that was set, that the quarterly target was set as 30, and the achievement was 39. Now, my impression from that KPI was that there's a body entity that if I feel aggrieved, that I can approach, and that they will then hear my plea or my case, and that there will then be a decision taken on, I presume, whether my license should be approved or not. But that is part of my question. I'm not sure of what that KPI quite stands for, whose performance is being indicated. And that's why I actually asked, when I initially asked my question, whether that presentation could be flighted, because I think it would help all of us in that regard. Thank you.
Chair, through you to Member van der Westhuizen. The indicator 2.2.3, I think, is the one that Member van der Westhuizen is referring to. Now, that is the number of provincial regulatory entity or PRE hearings conducted. Member van der Westhuizen, it doesn't refer to disputes per se. These are hearings conducted by the PRE where they consider applications for operating licenses, or what we used to call permits for taxis and buses and public transport in general. So it's actually a national indicator to determine, to make sure that the PREs are meeting regularly in order to meet the demand for new operating licenses and renewals of operating licenses. I hope that clarifies.
Honourable van der Westhuizen, please proceed.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ahmed, for coming to my assistance. That is indeed the KPI that I was referring to. But again, as I've said, what I would be interested in is, because we get lots of complaints about from the taxi operators saying that, you know, they wait long for permits to be issued and so on. And for me, that is the important issue here in the Western Cape to address now, not whether it's 30 or 39, but how speedily are these applications or cases resolved. If you could give me that indication, and how, and as I've asked before, what is the backlog currently? How many cases are on the desk waiting to be finalized? I hope that is now clear to you as well.
Thank you very much, Chair, again through you. And here I am always glad to report that in the Western Cape specifically, we do not have a backlog in applications for operating licenses. I think where Member van der Westhuizen is correct, there has been a substantial backlog in the number of applications for operating licenses from the National Public Transport Regulator. And I'm talking here specifically from tourism transport operators. That function used to be carried out by the provincial regulatory entity, but it was pulled up to the National Public Transport Regulator, or the NPTR, about 7 years ago or so. And ever since then, there has been a struggle for that NPTR to settle in. So there have been backlogs at the national level. Now, I was just thinking after I had answered Member van der Westhuizen, when it comes to disputes, so while we don't have any backlogs in processing of applications at the provincial level, when an applicant is refused an operating license, that applicant has got recourse to what's called the Transport Appeals Tribunal, the TAT, which is also a national structure. Now, I'm not aware that there are necessarily backlogs with the Appeals Tribunal. But again, that's a national structure that would deal specifically with appeals against decisions taken by the provincial regulatory entity. Now, in terms of the legislation, the National Land Transport Act, the provincial regulatory entity has got 60 days within which to process an application. Now, that 60 days, I mean, it sounds long, but that includes a 21-day mandatory period for advertising applications in the Government Gazette. And again, I'm very proud of the fact that in the Western Cape, our PRE with our own system, our turnaround time is always below that 60. In fact, it's in the region of about 45 days or below. And that includes consulting with the planning authorities like the City of Cape Town and all the other municipalities for them to give their directives with regards to whether the supply and demand is being balanced. So I hope, Member van der Westhuizen, that does answer your question. Yes, of course, there will be operators who complain that they wait long, but like I said, the process is very clearly defined in the NRTA. We have to publish in the Government Gazette, but we certainly don't have backlogs. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. Colleagues, thank you. Are there any other questions, follow-ups? Going once? Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ahmed and Mr. Payne and all your colleagues, Mr. Vet, and in the absence of Ms. Moore, knowing she just joined the department recently, and My colleague, Honourable van der Westhuizen, alluded to it earlier with regard to his comments that it must not have been an easy period for you all in terms of transitioning from the previous department into this fully fledged department. There were lots of challenges. Change is not easy. Lots of anxiety. There were some staff exits as well, fortunately not many. But notwithstanding that context, you have, in terms of what you presented to us today, you have done extremely well, and we are very grateful for your dedication. And on top of it, Mr. Ahmed, you had this prolonged taxi sort of strike that you had to deal with, and many of your colleagues. So we are immensely proud of the department in the manner in which they conduct their work, and we wish you well for the days ahead. It's still going to be challenging, but we know that you have the capabilities and the competencies to do what you need to do. From myself and on behalf of the committee, we say thank you. And with that, any closing remarks, Mr. Ahmed or Mr. Payne, that you would like to make before we take a brief break to get ourselves a cup of tea before we start with the second part of our meeting?
Nothing from my side, Chair.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Mr. Payne?
Chair, just thank you very much. Yes, it's been a challenge, but thanks for the support that is given to the standing committee, especially from a traffic law enforcement, traffic management point of view. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, colleagues, let's just take a brief comfort break of a few minutes, and then we reconvene at 14:30. It is just roughly about just over 10 minutes. Just make yourself a cup of tea. Down the passage, there is some refreshments. Please help yourself. And then we will reconvene at 14:30. Thank you so much. Okay, we'll do that. We will. All the members present, Johan?
Yes, Chair, it appears so. Mr. Saleko and Mr. van der Westhuizen are both still here in the meeting.
Thank you, colleagues. Are we good to go? Van der Westhuizen?
Indeed, thank you.
Lepu?
Yes,
Good.
Chair. Thank you.
Thank you so much, colleagues. It's the resumption of our meeting. Today is the 23rd of August. This is the Standing Committee on Mobility. I'm the chairperson, Derek America, and we will then commence with the second part of our meeting as was agreed to at the start of the meeting. Allow me to welcome Advocate Leroux to the meeting that will provide any legal assistance should we require such assistance and clarifications. And before we commence with the second part of our agenda, as Johan also mentioned, if there are any officials who would like to stay on in the meeting, you're welcome to. But if you wish to exit the meeting at this stage, you're also most welcome to do so. And allow me to thank you for your presence and for the contribution you have made to the meeting thus far. Thank you so much. With that said, colleagues, let us just look at a couple of matters and how the process is going to be unfold. Johan have disseminated a pro forma negotiating mandate to all the members. Now, the reason I've took a leave from my colleague van der Westhuizen, the manner in which he conducted his proceeding in his meetings with regard to the minutes, it will serve as a guide as to how we will deal with those pro forma negotiating mandates. So there are three pieces of legislation, one being the regulation of transport bill, economic regulation of transport bill, the National Road Traffic Amendment Bill, and the National Land Transport Amendment Bill. Now, we, at our previous meeting, and as the minutes will indicate, the department presented their perspective on these bills. The committee has gone through these bills, the bills, and also gone through and raised relevant questions for clarity from the department at our previous meeting. And also we dealt with the comments that came from stakeholders who also made certain sort of remarks in terms of how they view certain clauses within the amendment bill. Now, one of those we dealt with previously, and my memory serves me correct, there was a suggestion from Honourable van der Westhuizen that we, should conclude the negotiating mandate at that stage, but the meeting decided otherwise. Now, we are in great measure dictated to the dates that are not within our sphere of influence, but that of the NCOP. So the negotiating mandate that our NCOP delegate will have to carry into the NCOP is November the 8th. And then the final mandate with the provisional dates that we have is the 29th. So that leaves us with little time to conclude these negotiating mandates. Our next meeting date will be after the 8th of November. And unfortunately, then we would not be able to conclude these negotiating mandates. So can I firstly just ask Johan that we deal with the minutes quickly, and then we will deal with those performer mandates, and we can as a collective decide as to how we're going to take these mandates forward. Johan, will you please just put the minutes onto the screen quickly? This is the minutes of our standing committee on the 3rd of August. And the members present who are present here, and we also had Mr. Mbimbi, Nkondlu, and Mr. De Villiers. And it's per page 1, so that just are there any amendments, additions and corrections, colleagues? And then we have the substantive part of the minutes, which is the opening and welcome. And then we have the briefing from the department in terms of its APPs. And then the second part of the meeting dealt with the briefing by the department on number 3, the National Land Transport Amendment Bill. Advocate Collins briefed the committee. The committee deliberated on the content of the briefing. Thereafter, number 4, the department briefed the committee on the Economic Regulations Transport Bill, and that was also done by Advocate Collins. And the committee also engaged the department on the content of their presentation. And then lastly, the committee was briefed on the National Road Traffic Amendment Bill, and then Mr. Barrero presented to this committee, and we again engaged the presentation as this was done by Mr. Barrero. And then, colleagues, that's page 2 of the minutes. We proceed with page 3. The resolutions there, the chairperson informed the committee that members could discuss all of the inputs on the bills as it was presented in their respective caucuses, and as a committee formulated its negotiating mandate on the bill at its next meeting. And then there's a second one that is not very applicable to what we're going to do now. So, colleagues, that was the minutes of our previous meeting. If the presentation of the minutes is correct in your view, you will, or not, you have an opportunity to raise any matters that may arise out of the minutes that need to be corrected or need to be added that is not there. Could we just deal with that particular aspect first?
No amendments from my side. I'm happy.
Thank you, Honourable Van der Westhuizen.
I'm also happy, Chair. Thank you very much.
Okay. With this happiness expressed, thank you, colleagues. I take it that we have a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the minutes.
Indeed.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Johan. We will volstrek met daai minutes. Let's move on to the third part of the agenda, and that's the different negotiating mandates. Now, colleagues, I need to stress is that all the inputs and the presentations that were done at our previous meeting, they are all contained in the negotiating mandate. Johan, will you just project the first one for us quickly, and we can deal with it quickly? Johan, are you with me?
There we go, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you. Can you enlarge it a little quickly, because, you know, so this is a committee report, and this deals with the National Land Transport Bill. Johan, can you just move up a little, please? Okay. So start with the comments that we as a committee agreed to in our last meeting, and that deals with the first one being additional comment section. It is recommended that this section be revised to include these recommendations. So there are quite a number of these additions and recommendations that we have, and the outer column is you know, what we would want our representative to carry into the meeting of the NCOP when they deal with this particular bill. So you can move down. Okay, then it's clause 7A. The proposed amendment in section 11(1)(c) subparagraph 1(c)(v) includes a reference to state-owned rail operators. It's supported that the definition for this term should be inserted in the section 1 of the Act, as it is not there. So those are some of the recommendations. Clause 7C. And so we can go down, Johan. So these are all matters that we dealt with last on the 3rd of August. Further down, and those are largely recommendations that emanated from the engagement with the presentation of the department. And I must add also, colleagues, is that we also sent all of these recommendations to the National Department for their comments. To date, we have not received a response yet, but once we do receive a response, we will then distribute it amongst members, and then we will then consider it for our final mandate. Okay, so that is the one. And colleagues, I want just guidance now, because the others are similar, and you must guide me as to what you think is most appropriate way in which we can deal with. And Advocate Leroux can also, if need be, make an intervention if he so desires. So all of these matters were dealt with on the 3rd of August, and similar, the other 3 bills. Would you want us to formulate a negotiating mandate report now? Because we are, time is not on our side, because the committee meets on the 8th of November. and then or convene a special meeting once we receive the responses, and I'm not sure whether we will receive the responses in time from the department, and only then formulate the negotiating mandate, or are we then satisfied with the presentations that we've had the last time, and we agree to that we now empower ourselves to formulate the mandate, and then that will represent the mandate of the Western Cape. Just a brief response, Johan. You can put up the second bill quickly, please. The second one.
Okay, Chairperson, dis wanneer this is the economic transport regulator.
Yeah,
Regulation transport bill, yeah.
It's the normal introductory paragraph, and then you can just move down. There's just some general comments, and then just move further down. Objects of the bill, and then with the substantive changes that we'd like to see, you can move on. These largely comments with regard to the various clauses that we would like us to NCOP to consider when they deliberate on the bill. So we can move down, Johan. Application and general, and that is page 4. And move on to page 5. Close 5, you move proceed, and those are just terms. Access requested. Page 9 is page 11. Let's move on. Page 12. Page 14. And the last page, page 15. I think it was 16. Wow. Yeah.
I think this is the last one, Chair.
There we go. Yeah, there you go. Okay, colleagues. Again, these are all matters that we dealt with on the 3rd, and it was so, and we agreed to that, and it was so incorporated in the formulation of our mandate. And similarly, with regard to the final bill, and that is which one is that, Johan? The land transport?
No, the road traffic.
Road traffic management. Okay. Bill, amendment bill. Okay, it's a draft, and it is once again similarly. It's a definition of a motor vehicle, clause 2.1, etc. Just go down. And we had a very long engagement with these matters, colleagues. And so nothing of it is unfamiliar to us. We have certainly engaged with the content in our previous meeting, and it's very similar. It has simply just been exported into this particular mandate. And my question to you is that are you satisfied that these three bills and the pro forma mandate that is being presented to us now can be adopted as a report, a negotiating mandate from the Western Cape Provincial Parliament Standing Committee on Mobility? Johan, we'll give you direction. Honourable van der Westhuizen, please. I recognize you, Honourable van der Westhuizen.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you. I appreciate the speed with which you have presented this. May I just refer back to the report on the economic regulation of transport bill? If I may, Chair, there under 2, we ask a question: can the establishment of the above bodies and the appointment of said officers not be undertaken with existing personnel? And I was, in going through this, I was considering the possibility of perhaps rather making a statement than, as part of our mandate, asking a question. For example, couldn't we rather say the bill should provide for the transition of the above bodies and set officers to be recruited from within existing structures as far as justifiable and in the best interest of all? It's just a question, Chair, whether rather putting in a proposal would not carry perhaps more value or weight than just, you know, throwing up in the air. Can the establishment not be undertaken with existing personnel, particularly, you know, as we are dealing with draft legislation? But I leave that with you, Chair.
I think it can be accommodated, and I think we should change that, Johan. Can you?
Chairperson, it's this one that's highlighted.
That's the one. Yes, that's the one.
Okay, so
correct. And perhaps I can quickly, on my side, paste it in the chat box, my proposal.
Okay.
It has been done with track changes, and I doubt whether the deletions and the underlying would be carried over. But I think Mr. Kutsia would be able to distinguish between what is currently there and what you know I am proposing.
Okay.
Okay. I think it has gone through with all the changes already. So I'm sorry. I'm happy. The bill should provide for transition of the above body and said officers to be recruited from within existing structures. I think it says the same as what we requested, except that we put that as our wish and not as our question. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Honourable van der Westhuizen. Right. So, having said that, so are you happy with the other content of the mandate?
Absolutely happy, Chair, and may I say, quite impressed that the Western Cape will be commenting in such detail as to these bills, and that we therefore, I would think, enable our delegates in the NCOP to really meaningfully participate in the debate that would be following their deliberations on these bills. Thank you very much to everybody who compiled this and assisted us to get this far.
Thank you. So the question would then be, notwithstanding all the suggestions that we propose and the changes that we wish to be reflected in the final bill, do we support these bills, or do we not support these bills? What's the mandate that we can give to our delegates when they carry in these sort of changes that we wish to see effected in the bill? Honourable van der Westhuizen, I recognise you.
Thank you, Chair. Me again. Chair, I think in the current versions, plus our proposals, we can then obviously support the bill. What I realize is that obviously the NCOP is taking input from other provinces as well. And it may be that some of those inputs are not, can I call it, compatible or not in line with what we feel comfortable to support. But should that not be the case, should the final product coming from the NCOP be either the existing version with or without our proposals, and I sincerely do hope that particularly at least the grammatical can I call it, improvements that we are suggesting here, that they would be incorporated. But in the absence of any, can I call it, detrimental changes to those bills, I believe we can give our delegates the mandate to support. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable for the session. I just need a guidance from Advocate Leroux. In the event of, we needed to formulate the final mandate, we can again withdraw our support from the bill and then not support the bill. Should we be of the view that anyway, Johan, I recognize you, so please guide me there.
Chairperson, yeah, just before Advocate Leroux comes in, the committee has got a few options. One, that we support the bill, and the support is not subject to the proposed amendments. So if they don't accept any of our amendments, the committee then, or the Western Cape then, still supports the bill. The second is that the committee express its support to the bill subject to the amendments that we propose. So if they don't accept any of our amendments, then obviously our delegate on the other side will not support the bill. And then a third option is express its support the bill with the following proposed amendments. The support is not subject to certain proposed amendments. So, and then obviously the fourth one is to not support the bill at all. So I think the committee just needs to apply their mind which of those ones they would like to say. That if we support the bill, we provide the delegate on the other side to support the bill, even if they don't accept the amendments from the Western Cape.
Thank you. Let's just deal with each one separately quickly, and then we can express a view on it. Okay, Chair. Thank you, Honourable van der Westhuizen. I value your input and your guidance. Much appreciated. But let's deal with it separately quickly and then we can formulate a view on each one separately.
Do you want me to flight them again, Chair?
Yes, please.
No particular order, Chair.
No particular order.
Okay. Here we go. This is I think the National Road traffic one. Just get to the top here.
Yeah. So there you can date it. You can put in today's date, Johan. Okay.
as follows, and then authority to.
I'm happy, I'm comfortable that we can support this bill.
Supportable, and then the committee further proposed the following amendments.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so you will. Colleagues, are you comfortable with this particular one?
Comfortable and supportive of this.
Honorable Seleku?
Yes, Chair, thanks.
Great, thank you, colleague. So, Johan, let me read this into the record. Can I, before I do that, Advocate Leroux, you have anything that you wish to comment on or add?
Chairperson, afternoon. I know I'm very quiet here, but I'm listening very attentively to everything. And the reason why I'm not saying anything is because I haven't identified any reason to do so. So I'm very comfortable with what the committee is doing.
Thank you, Advocate Leroux. So yeah, I'm going to just read the top section into the record because it's going to take us forever if we should read all the proposed additions or changes that we'd like to effect. So in terms of this committee report, the report of the Standing Committee on Mobility on the National Road Traffic Amendment Bill B/75/2020, dated the 23rd of August 2023, as follows. The Standing Committee on Mobility, having considered the subject of the National Road Traffic Amendment Bill B/7B/2020, referred to the committee in accordance with Standing Rule 217, confers on the Western Cape's delegation to the NCOP the authority to support the bill. The committee further proposes the following amendments, and the amendments follow in detail as to what we would like to be effected. So the support for this bill is therefore not subject to the adoption of these these amendments, but as the Western Cape, we would like the NCOP to give serious consideration for these amendments because we are of the view that it will improve and make this bill a better bill. Can I have a mover that we then adopt the report as was sort of stated? Jan, I see you can't move, eh?
No, I can't move.
Okay.
Just writing here.
Okay, good. Can I have a proposal that we adopt the report? And Honourable van der Westhuizen?
You have support. Thank you.
Thank you. So noted, and thank you, Honourable Seleku. I recognize you.
Chair, thank you very much.
Thank you, colleague. So the report on the National Road Traffic Amendment Bill is so adopted. Then moving on to the second one that's projected on the screen, and that relates to the economic regulations of transport bill. And again, Johan, you will then type in the date here, which is the 23rd of August 2023. If we look at the amendments that we propose, Johan, will you just briefly just scroll down quickly?
Chairperson, I must just correct this one. So,
if we can recall your colleagues in our previous engagement during public participation process, there was a serious reservation from Golden Arrow Bus Services in terms of some of the clauses in terms of Johan, can you just enlighten me on that serious concern expressed by Golden Arrow?
Chairperson, it was in relation to the operating licenses that was issued, and I think it was issued to them for it seems like a lifetime, but I can't.
And now they want to revoke that with the new regulations.
That's it, yeah. There could be one must maybe see if the national department comment on that specific issue.
Okay.
Chair, then one could maybe just re-look at it.
Yeah, will you just move further down, Johan, please? Okay, just a moment. So these first clause one, it basically deals with definitions. And further down that page basically deals with it's nothing substantive. But just a moment, there clause 3 on. I think we'll just need to. It is recommended that climate change consideration linked to the economic viability of the transmission to be considered in the bill, and although climate change is very important, it is not a deal breaker for us to support this bill or not. From the business as usual approach, infrastructure planning and management, climate change need to be considered with regard to those matters which should be contained in possibly regulations. Applications of the Act, general applications. Let's just go there quickly. Johan, just go a little higher quickly. Okay. This is the one more. Further up again quickly on. One more. Okay. Okay. A key component of an efficient, reliable and viable transport industry in South Africa is a consideration of impact outside of the normal area of concern for the transport industry. Evidence shows that climate change will have, okay, we've dealt with that one. Just go further down. Okay, stop there. Clause 4.2 allows the minister, which is the national minister, to include any other market entity or facility, public or private, if a single operator controls more than 70% of the market concerned, or the precondition for efficiency and cost effectiveness do not exist in the market concern. It is submitted from our view that a more suitable proposal, one which would serve the purpose of introducing certainty, would be for a single declaration to be made by the minister after consultation with the regulator, and that the listed regulators are incorporated in the regulator. Subsequent to the declaration, by notice in the Gazette, the relevant regulators are then given a 3-year period within which to institute the necessary legislative reform to align with the regulator. The imposition of regulations on a service which appears to be uncompetitive, but where, in actual fact, there are different levels of service being provided, example, supply-led service versus a scheduled demand-led service. It hopefully catered for by clause 4.2, but note is made here of the risk of the minister imposing regulations without due consultation with the provincial and municipal authority in that service area. So, now we're going to deal with it. It is thus recommended that a new clause be inserted in clause 4, which makes it clear that the regulator must consult with the affected provincial and municipal authorities with respect to the services to be regulated within that municipal or regulatory area. Okay, move on, Johan, quick, please. Further on. So it's recommended. Thank you, Anne. Page 6. So, determination of access costs and review of access agreements. The provision of the Act should consider clause in the light of the comment that went on previously. Request with prescribed. Okay, let's continue. Let's carry on. So colleagues, here's about 17 pages of these sort of regulations that we've proposed, and given it's nothing to do with how voluminous the quantity of the amendments that we used to see change, but it's also about the quality of the proposals that we wish the Act should address. So it is my view, and you can please differ with me, is that within this context of the economic regulatory bill, not regulatory bill. Yeah. Okay. I want to be guided that we support this bill subject to consideration for these proposed amendments, or notwithstanding the incorporation of these changes into the bill, that we nonetheless supported. and that is the regulation of transport, economic regulations of transport bill. How do you feel about it, colleagues? That if these recommendations or these proposed amendments are not incorporated, we do not support the bill, bearing in mind that, you know, we cannot always get everything that we want. We'll get some, and some we won't get. Like usually the national department takes the proposals of the Western Cape very seriously, and where possible, many of our proposals are often incorporated in the final bill. So are we going to take the same view as we've done with the previous one, or are we going to... Honourable Van der Westhuizen?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I believe we can take the similar view as with the previous one. I realize that we are perhaps, jumping the gun in the sense that there is, I believe, a final mandate stage where we would have an opportunity to again express ourselves on the, and I call it the final product, once the NCOP has considered and perhaps incorporated changes from other provinces. So in a sense, I think what we're saying is we are happy to support the bill in its current format, or its current version, yet we would like to see certain amendments to be made, but that would not, the non-acceptance of our proposals would not, change our view completely from one of expressing support for the bill to opposing or objection to the bill. How we are going to capture that is perhaps problematic, but as I've said, we must just not paint ourselves into a corner. There will be, I believe, a second opportunity to consider the final product and then give the, as I call it, the final mandate.
We may express ourselves differently then. Okay. So, okay. Advocate Leroux, I'll take you after Honourable Seleku, and then Honourable Seleku.
No, Chair. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm just
Luckily you were in the NCOP. You know exactly how it operates.
I was, and usually, Chair, it's a very difficult one, because if one understands how the NCOP operates, it would be definitely most provinces that would agree with the bill, and we as the province would not agree with the bill. But also looking in terms of the process that we engage in terms of public participation, and there was, there was a lot said by Golden Arrow, and I think also from the side of SALGA. Also, I don't know whether it was on this particular where there was no proper consultations, and SALGA was very, very, very vocal, and to the extreme of being upset, that they have been ignored and all of that. So for us, I just wanted us as a province to take a safer option, just to be cautious in this regard. And then, as I agree with Member Van der Westhuizen, that we are going to have a second bite when we deal with the final mandate. But I think for us we must adopt a safer and a cautious approach, looking at the number of comments and views when it came to this particular bill. That's my take, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Seleku, for your sort of input. It's most valuable, and I remember the vociferousness in which SALGA sort of expressed themselves in our meeting, in the hearing. But when I hand over to Advocate Leroux quickly, Advocate Leroux, over to you.
Chairperson, thank you. I hope I'm not saying something that is that everybody already knows, and maybe Mr. Kutsia can also just express a view on whether he agrees or not. I don't think the committee has to be overly concerned with, I think as a member from the Westhuizen said, painting itself into a corner with the negotiating mandate. My understanding really is that the negotiating and the final mandates, there's no nexus between whether one can support in the negotiating mandate and not support in the final mandate. One cannot support in the negotiating mandate and support. Because there's a lot of water that has to run into the ocean. One doesn't know what the outcome of the NCOP process is. So in that sense, I don't think the committee really needs to be concerned. It can support or not support in the negotiating mandate and then reconsider that at the final mandate phase, depending on what happens. There's no situation where the committee needs to be concerned that because it's supported in the negotiating mandate phase, now it cannot not support it in the final mandate phase. So the committee is really free to choose whether to support or not support without having to worry about the final mandate. Also, again, this is probably something that everybody's familiar with. I just wanted on a second bite at the apple. Of course, in the final mandate phase, there won't be an opportunity for the committee to. In the final mandate process to again comment on or make substantive comments. At that point in time, the committee will simply be restricted in terms of the mandating act to say yea or nay. And there's no conditionalities or a further opportunity to make inputs. But I think that is pretty well known. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Advocate Leroux. Just confirm what the Honourable Seleku has stated. Thank you so much. Yeah, so we will tread cautiously, as our colleagues were saying, is that I'm ambivalent in the sense that my gut tells me not to support, or support subject to the mandate amendments, and Honourable van der Westhuizen, let us just help me here. Would that be considered to be a cautious approach in the sense that we support subject to these amendments being considered, and then at the later stage we say, well, you didn't consider our mandate, we don't support?
Chair, if I may, we could always say, and I think we've got that freedom or scope to say we to support the bill subject to the following amendments as proposed. And then I think what Advocate Leroux has said, we'll have I almost want to say absolute freedom, because I think we can predict that not all amendments would be supported by a majority of the provinces. I wonder if that would be allow yourself to be a little bit more comfortable in terms of our report.
Thank you, Honourable van der Westhuizen. Honourable Seleku, are you happy with that?
Chair, as Advocate Leroux has said, that we are not limited. We are taking a cautious one, that we support subject to the following amendments. Should the final mandate come and then our views have not been considered, or the views that has been relayed or raised by our stakeholders, which we feel strongly about as a province, has not been taken into consideration, and then we might as well decide otherwise, and maybe decide that we are not going to support this particular bill. But for now, to tread cautious and open the door for them to be open to our input, I think it will be a cautious one to say we support subject to the following conditions. And then if they don't consider us, then we will we'll be blunt and say whether we support or not. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Seleko. And it gives me great comfort to have you in my meeting as part of the committee, given your experience in the NCOP. So I'm going to read the report into the record, and then I would like to have a proposer and a seconder. And here we go. The committee report. The report on the Standing Committee on Mobility on the Economic Regulations of Transport Bill B-1B-2020 open brackets NCOP dated the 23rd August 2023 as follows. The Standing Committee on Mobility, having considered the subject of the economic regulations of Transport Bill B-1B-2020 open brackets NCOP, referred to the committee in accordance with Standing Rule 217, confers on the Western Cape's delegation in the NCOP the authority to support the bill. The committee expresses its support for the bill subject to the following amendments. And then the amendments follows, and they are so recorded in the report. Can I have a mover for the adoption of the report?
I so move.
Thank you, Honourable van der Westhuizen. Can I have a seconder?
Seconded, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Seleko. The report on the Economic Regulations Amendment Bill is so adopted. Johan, thank you so much. Can we have the third and final report, pro forma report on screen, please? And this one, colleagues, deals with the National Road Traffic Amendment Bill. So, haven't we dealt with this one? No, we have not.
James, yeah, my
did.
apology. Yeah, we did. We did. Wait,
yeah.
Let me just look for that one, Jay. So many bills, so little screens. It's the land transport.
Correct. Okay.
There we go, Chair.
Okay. So just look at the specific concerns that we have and that we would like to submit to the NCOP. Just additional comments, the context utilized when it's contracted public service operation across municipal, plus 7A. It deals with definitions and consultations, etc. And section 11(1)(b)(5). Last one, yeah. The Act states that the provincial sphere of government is responsible for ensuring that municipalities that lack capacity and resources are capacitated to perform their land transportation function. Consequently, it's submitted that the province can assist the municipality that requires assistance to negotiate and conclude contracts at all. I think that was very important in the sense that not all municipalities have the capacity to engage with potential contractors in terms of these matters. So, colleagues, this piece of legislation has been in the news now and often referred to in great detail with regard to the events that played itself out the past few weeks. Fortunately, nothing of that impact upon these amendments. So, again, Johan, would you just effect those changes and in congruence, in line with our cautious approach? And I think that these amendments are not of such a nature that we cannot adopt a similar approach that is supporting the bill, the committee further proposes the following amendments. So, Jan, we can again include that. This is the mandate that we confer to the our NCOP delegation, and I read the report into the record. The report of the Standing Committee on Mobility on the National Land Transport Amendment Bill, V/7F/2016, dated the 23rd of August 2023, as follows. The Standing Committee on Mobility, having considered the subject of the National Land Transport Amendment Bill, B/7F/2016, referred to the committee in accordance with Standing Rule 217, confers on the Western Cape delegation in the NCOP the authority to support the bill. The committee further proposes the following amendments, and the amendments on the specific provisions and clauses follow, and comments and the recommendations are also contained in the report. Colleagues, can I have a proposal that we adopt the report? Honourable van der Westhuizen.
Thank you, Chair. While we have it on our screens, may I propose some small amendments?
Yes.
I think there's a 5, paragraph number 5, comments on specific provisions. In all probability, that whole sentence can be deleted. That whole paragraph can probably be deleted. And my question is just to support the bill, should we say subject to the following proposed amendments? Or, and again, then we have the freedom to later on decide once we've seen the final product whether we support or object.
No problem. Thank you so much. I will again read it into the record. Any other colleagues, any other amendments? Okay, in the absence of any amendments, Jan, I'm going to read the report into the record, and as amended, that the report of the Standing Committee on Mobility on the National Land Transport Amendment Bill, B/7F/2016, dated 23rd of August 2023, as follows. The Standing Committee on Mobility, having considered the subject of the National Land Transport Amendment Bill, B/7F/2016, referred to the committee in accordance with Standing Rule 217, confers on the Western Cape's delegation in the NCOP the authority to support the bill subject to the following amendments. And then the amendments follow, specific clauses, comment and recommendations. I already have a proposal that we adopt the report. Honourable van der Westhuizen. Could I have a seconder, please?
Honourable Seleko, Chair, will second that proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honourable Seleko, for that. And then that brings us to the end of the 3 reports. Is there any, before we step off the reports, is there any comment any person would like to make?
Nothing from my side, Chair.
In the absence of any further comments, these negotiating mandates will be forwarded to our delegates to carry into the next meeting. Johan, you...
Chairperson, just a quick question. Should we receive any of the feedback or comments from the National Department? Look, the negotiating date is the 8th of November. Then if it is substantial, I'll discuss it with you and we can submit it to the committee members, and then one can maybe revisit. Because it's not as if we're going to send these mandates tomorrow or next week. So, okay.
Correct.
Thank you, Chair.
You. We hope we get some feedback from them before the 8th. It would be good. But who knows? Okay, right. That deals with the negotiating mandates, and then we have adopted the minutes of our previous meeting, and then the only thing that's left for us to do is the resolutions.
Yes, Chair, just the resolution.
Any resolutions that Honourable van der Westhuizen, I recognise you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, Chair. Chair, I believe we are all concerned about the taxi industry in the Western Cape as well as recent happenings. And it is my impression that the taxi task team is now again meeting, and that they are set to conclude, I think if I read correctly, that certain aspects regarding the impoundment of vehicles and other actions, that those were to be concluded within 14 days, if I'm not mistaken. Now, I do not want us as a committee in our oversight role to become involved in the debates and the negotiations. But I believe that by the time that we would be able to meet again, that by then, hopefully the 14 days would have already lapsed, and that the end result would hopefully have been signed off by all parties to those negotiations. And I want to propose or recommend that we call our provincial minister for mobility to come and report to this committee on, can we call it a taxi strike, but particularly the functions of the provincial task team, how he sees his role as well as that of his officials in terms of that task team versus, the municipal officials, and particularly there the City of Cape Town's law enforcement officers, etc. I do believe it's a very important aspect, and that we as a committee should ask some probing questions in this regard, because I think we would all agree that we need to avoid, wherever possible, a repeat of what we have seen almost 3 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks. Tomorrow it will be 3 weeks ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable van der Westhuizen, and I just want to respond to that. No, I agree with you completely. It will be remiss of us if we don't do that. I may add is that 2 weeks ago, I've sent out letters to the City of Cape Town, to the Mayor, as well as to the Minister, to come do exactly that to our meeting today. But then subsequently the strike was suspended, and then the taxi task team, Santaku's participation, was reignited. So I withdrew the invitation and took it off the agenda because, as you were saying, that we don't want to be seen to become involved in a matter that is not fully sort of resolved and ventilated. So, and I mean, we could ask questions in the House also with regard to court outcomes, and I would do that because I think that from our side we don't want to be getting involved in matters that is not fully resolved yet. And as you correctly say, it is the intention of myself and as you've expressed it of this committee, is that we will do exactly that, and we will do it possibly at our next meeting, because the 14 days would have elapsed by then, and it would be an appropriate time for the minister and to brief the committee on the outcomes and what the lessons and all of those things that we need to learn from it so that we can prevent it, a repetition thereof in future. No guarantees, but that's basically what the only guarantee we have. We were planning at our next meeting to go visit the Winans Airport. So we will have to decide between calling the minister or to go visit the Winans Airport. So I will liaise with the members, and then we can make a decision in that regard. Okay, yeah, but you can record it down as a resolution that it's perhaps at our next meeting, the airport will still be there. We will then have that engagement. Do we need to invite the City of Cape Town as was originally intended, or should we leave the City of Cape Town out of the equation when we do get the minister? Honourable Professor.
Chair, thank you very much. I think if we invite the City of Cape Town, obviously our oversight is limited to our provincial minister and his department, but I believe that both Santaku and the City of Cape Town would be able to, can I call it, add value by sharing their perspectives on particularly the way forward. I think the history has been recorded, not a very good history, but particularly I'm interested in things such as the resolution mechanism, which apparently they have already agreed to, and that we are probably thrashing out as we meet today. So can I just ask that if we invite them, we also invite other role players that might be able to assist in our understanding of the role of the department and the minister in this, can I call it, dispute that arose. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. So the final invitation may differ from what we captured today, but I get that. Honourable Sileku?
No, Chair, thank you very much. I just wanted to support Honourable Van der Westhuizen in that, not because we have oversight in terms of the City of Cape Town as per our mandate, but also there's nothing that prohibits us from asking relevant stakeholders for additional information. So that, because we all have been watching and we've all have been listening to, member X blaming member B, and, when everybody's in the same house, at least it will give us better perspective as to what has been happening and how does one actually proactively engage with these particular stakeholders so that whatever we have seen, unraveling within our province, that we are able to mitigate, so this thing does not actually happen. So we can, they stop, shifting blame, from the national, from provincial to local. I think that would be a great idea, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Seleko. So we take it at our next meeting, Jan, which is when, the 19th, I think, of September.
That's correct, Chairperson.
So we will then have that engagement, and we will have it in person in the chambers. Okay,
noted. So yeah, Chair, that's the day that we were going to go to the airport, and we could maybe even fit both of them in that. We start off with the engagement with the provincial minister, and then from there the committee can depart to the airport.
But we will want the city and possibly some park also to become part of the engagement, and we cannot have that engagement for an hour and then we rush off to somewhere else.
But the 19th, that specific Tuesday, there is a morning slot open, and then the afternoon slot is the mobility committee. So what we can do is we can use part of the morning slot. I'll ask Michaela now to diarize it for us. A 2 hour or 2.5 or 3 hour slot. Then we depart to the airport, and because after the 19th, it's just going to be too difficult.
So just hang on with that, Honourable Seleko.
No, that's a legacy, and Chair, my apologies.
Okay, Honourable van der Westhuizen.
I believe we are happy to leave the logistics to yourself and the procedural officer, Chair.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sean, we just work on that, and I think it can work out that way, that it's a morning slot, and the afternoon we go view our intended activity for the day. Right?
Okay.
Great. Thanks. Anything else, colleagues? Ask for the GMT on the George and Maitland or Metro statistic with regard to the vehicle inspections and the percentage of the fleet. And Mr. Ahmed said we can extract it and it can become available.
Got it, Chair.
As well as the district inspections.
Got it, like a Chair.
So you've got it. Okay, anything else, colleagues, that you got further information on?
Nothing from my side, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable van der Westhuizen. It is now 15 minutes to 4. So, John?
Chair, no, if it's up to you, we can go.
Allow me to express my heartfelt appreciation and gratitude to all our members on the platform and our support staff, Mfundu, Candace, Shiraj, who was with us earlier, Johan, and of course the officials who stayed with us, and I'm sure they would have made themselves heard if we had misrepresented some of the things that they have expressed in previous presentations to the committee regarding those bills. But in the absence of Advocate Leroux, also, I'd like to express our thanks. He's probably still with us. Express our thanks for his able sort of guidance in terms of us dealing in a legally sort of manner with regard to these bills. But that's it, colleagues. May you have a wonderful evening further. And till the next time, we meet again in a different committee. Johan, again, for all the work that you've done in the background, and Mfundu, you too, I would like to say thank you so much. And colleagues, with that, I declare this meeting closed. Have a wonderful evening ahead.